The rise and demise of the A380 has been as spectacular as it has been swift. What was once heralded as the future of commercial air travel has completely flopped. Even though passengers absolutely love the plane, airlines don't feel the same. Few airlines have bought it, and those that have been casting it aside with reckless abandon. Without a miracle, the superjumbo may not be around for much longer. But luckily for all of us, the plane might just have a savior. Indian Airlines could and probably should buy the A380. Let me explain. Now, before hopping into the video, I gotta admit that I'm a little bit stretched thin. I work a full-time job while also running this channel solo, and that means I often work 16-hour days. While I love doing it, I find that I have less and less time to read, which is a bummer because I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power. That's why I'm pleased that Blinkist is sponsoring today's video. Blinkist allows you to understand the most important concepts from over 5,500 nonfiction books and podcasts in as little as 15 minutes. For a long time, people have been telling me I need to read Malcolm Gladwell's books on human behavior, but I've simply never had enough time. But on a recent trip to the supermarket, I threw on the Blinkist rendition of Outliers, one of his most famous books. In just 16 minutes, I was able to grasp the 9 key ideas that Gladwell puts forth on why high achievers are so successful. Right now, my listeners can try Blinkist free for 7 days and earn 25% off a premium membership. And recently, Blinkist added a new feature called Blinkist Connect, which allows 2 people to share one premium account, which is a pretty good deal. So if you're in need of a last-minute holiday gift or just want to expand your knowledge, go give Blinkist a try by visiting the link in the description. First, let's talk about the state of Indian aviation. In 2024, the country will overtake the UK as the world's 3rd largest aviation market, with the majority of that growth coming from domestic expansion, aka flights within India itself. To keep up with that demand, airlines like Jet Airways and Air India have been eyeing huge orders for hundreds of new planes. The only problem is that there isn't enough space for all those new aircraft. Right now, there are just too many Indian travelers and not enough airports to handle them all. As a point of comparison, the United States has about 1 airport per 700,000 residents. India has 1 airport per 11 million residents. That's 16 times higher. Unsurprisingly, these airports are stuffed to the brim with planes and passengers alike, and in turn, delays happen constantly. On average, 1 in every 3 flights in India are late. As a matter of fact, India's most punctual airline, Go Air, has a worse on-time performance than America's least punctual airline, Allegiant. This doesn't just hurt passengers, it also impacts the airline's ability to schedule effectively. And with more planes being added to the mix, this problem will only get worse. Now, to its credit, the Indian government is taking action. In early 2020, India's finance ministry greenlit a plan to build 100 new airports. While this is certainly a step in the right direction, many of these projects were delayed due to COVID and don't have a clear completion date. To make matters worse, these 100 airports may not be enough to address growth. The country's aviation minister now says they need far more, and is pitching a plan to build 220 new airports. However, it will be an uphill battle to find both the will and the capital to make this new plan a reality. So it's clear that building new airports won't be a sufficient short-term fix. What India needs right now is a way to accommodate more passengers without increasing the total number of planes. Enter the A380, which seems like the perfect tool for the job. The A380 was designed to address this exact conundrum. With the ability to carry over 500 passengers at once, a single A380 can do the job of 3 to 4 narrowbodies. In theory, this can reduce traffic on taxiways and runways, and increase the total number of passengers an airport can handle. But of course, the A380 never managed to live up to its potential. It was plagued by two key weaknesses: its high operating costs and its high purchasing costs. The plane is a gas guzzler, and it can only turn a profit if at least 75% of its seats are full. Now, the plane is huge, so filling it consistently has been a challenge for many airlines. In addition, new A380s came with an absurd price tag. At a list price of $445 million, it's the most expensive commercial jet of all time. If not for these two shortcomings, maybe, just maybe, the A380 could have lived up to its potential. And the good news is that both of these flaws can be overcome in India. First off, the demand for Indian air travel is skyrocketing. As such, airlines won't struggle to fill the jumbo. Second, the price of a used A380 has plummeted. Right now, secondhand A380s can be had for just pennies on the dollar. The cheapest A380s out there are going for as little as $40 million, which is just 9% of their original list price. With both of these obstacles surmountable, it seems like the A380 may have a real chance to soar. But hold on a second, how do we know that the A380 will work in a domestic setting? After all, it was designed to fly long intercontinental routes, not short hops. Well, let's take a look at Japan for inspiration. Like India, Japan has a very high population density, and due to geographical limitations, it's been hard for them to build new airports. As such, airlines like ANA and Japan Airlines turned to massive, high-capacity 747s to fly domestic routes. This strategy worked wonders, and these 747s remained in service for over 3 decades. Today, those jets are retired, but their legacies live on. Both ANA and JAL continue to operate many domestic flights with wide-bodies. So the business case has been clearly defined, but which Indian carriers are most likely to actually adopt the plane? Well, not every airline is suited to fly it. SpiceJet, for instance, only flies Boeing jets, so buying the A380 is a non-starter. And Indigo, India's biggest airline, has dominated the market by using just A320s, so it probably isn't eager to shake things up. However, there is at least one major airline where the plane is a fit. That would be Air India, the country's flag carrier. Now, the A380 might seem like an odd choice for Air India. After all, its current wide-body fleet consists solely of Boeing jets. But a few weeks ago, the airline made a big announcement. Singapore Airlines would be taking a 25% stake in its business. Singapore is the world's second largest A380 operator, and they've built a robust training and maintenance network to support the jet. Now, Air India can also leverage those resources, making it much easier to integrate the jet into its fleet. Of all India's carriers, this is the airline that has the greatest chance of success. So it seems like India is the ideal environment to showcase the A380's potential, and there is at least one airline who might adopt it. So then, why haven't we seen this happen yet? Well, there are a few roadblocks that need to be addressed before the A380 can shine. First, the A380's wings are simply too big for most airports. At nearly 80 meters across, the plane needs ICAO Code F gates, and only 4 airports in India are Code F compliant. Now, it just so happens that these 4 airports are the ones that need the A380 the most. They are in densely populated areas and suffer the worst congestion. But for the A380 to gain wide acceptance in the country, it'll need to operate into other airports as well. Now remember, India is building at least 100 new airports, which could include Code F gates from the start. But these airports are likely to be built in smaller communities that don't already have a major commercial hub, and they're less likely to suffer congestion. In order to get the absolute most out of the jet, India's existing airports, especially those in big cities, would need to be retrofitted. And since the country is already spending so much money on other airport-related projects, there probably isn't much appetite to make this happen. But even if new gates could be built, other issues still linger. Take a look at this picture of an Air India A320. Does anything look off to you? Well, the plane's got some weird-looking gear. Many of Air India's A320s have double bogey landing gear. meaning they have twice the number of wheels as traditional A320s. This oddity tells us a lot about the state of India's runways and taxiways. Many of them are brittle, built from less impact-resistant materials. Now, these funky A320s use these wheels to better distribute their weight so that the pavement doesn't crack. But no matter how many extra wheels you put on an A380, it'll never be able to use these runways. It's the world's heaviest plane, with a dry mass that's over 500,000 pounds. For many of the country's runways, the plane could just sink straight through them. These runways would need to be completely redone to accommodate the superjumbo, which of course would be an expensive endeavor. Ultimately, these limitations might scare airlines away from the A380, and perhaps they'll look for an alternate solution. After all, Air India is currently evaluating both the 787 and A350 for international expansion. Perhaps they can just reallocate some of those jets to fly domestically. But this solution isn't great. Those jets won't arrive for many years, while the A380 is available now. Alternatively, they could look to buy other used jets like the 777-200, a jet that Air India knows well. But the used jet market is currently on fire, with the cost of used planes going up and up. Only the A380 has been immune to such price hikes, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it sounds oxymoronic, but the A380 seems like the most cost-effective solution. Finally, you could argue that Air India might buy used 747-400s instead, since they have a long history with the type. But the A380, flaws and all, still has much better operating economics than that near 40-year-old jet. That's especially true in a high-density, all-economy configuration. At the end of the day, the A380 can still be a big help even in a limited role. Even if it's confined to serving just as a shuttle between India's 4 biggest airports, it could still be a game-changer, reducing congestion where it's needed most. Ultimately, if Indian carriers take a gamble on the A380, they could end up being very pleased with the result. So I just got off my very first A380 a couple weeks ago, and it was a pretty remarkable experience. I always knew that people loved the A380, but it isn't until you actually fly it that you realize just how incredibly comfortable it actually is. If you guys have also flown the A380, I would love to hear if you agree, and hopefully we all get the chance to fly the plane again before they all fizzle out. Thanks again to Blinkist for supporting today's video, and also to my patrons who help make this channel possible. If you like what I do and want to help the channel grow, go ahead and check out this link right here. And as always, if you learned something new today, leave a like and subscribe to keep learning. And until I see you again, don't forget to look up.